There you go.
Great. Yeah. So thanks again for having me in to talk a little bit about FCS Express, and it's great coming on the back end of some of the discussions that were just had. There's a lot of relevant things in FCS Express in regards to the high dimensional data reduction. So to kind of jump right into the software a little bit, I think one of the things that comes up often is why use FCS Express. And the way I kind of like to juxtaposition this is, what we've done in the past with technology convergence, having all these kind of separate tools like GPSs and cameras and calculators. All this stuff is wrapped into a smartphone now, which is really nice and efficient to do a lot of the different things we need to do. And that same kind of need is also seen in cytometry these days, where you might be using other tools like Diva or Flojo or whatever it is. And then you have to take that data and take it out to Excel, to Prism via copy and pasting, and export to PowerPoint and Photoshop and things like that. What we do in FCS Express is we bring all of those tools together in the same place, right? So that way, you don't have this need for convergence because it's already here within one software package. And when you move a gate, everything in your kind of bar plots and pie charts and B-swarm plots, everything kind of updates in FCS Express itself. So what we really focus on is getting results in the software itself in FCS Express. And when we looked at other flow cytometry software packages, you have this need where you go from your data to kind of basic plots and statistics, and you're copying and pasting out to Prism and Excel before you even get to that result. And again, what you're going to see in the software today as we kind of walk through it is, again, all of that integration, even going into what was talked about earlier about processive versus interactive analysis, all of that is included in FCS Express. So there's been a lot of kind of updates recently to the software. I said, since the summer, even since the last 2 weeks ago, M1 Mac compatibility has come out for FCS Express. So if you're using those new ARM-based Macs, you can get going with the software right now. Some of the big things I wanted to cover today are these Levi Jennings plots that we have now in FCS Express. So I know a lot of folks earlier had talked about the need for cytometer calibration. This is a really great tool for doing that. We've introduced a new live updating auto compensation and auto unmixing wizard that also has spillover spreading, CSI matrix, normalized spectrum. And what will happen is we update those matrices in real time. So literally as you move a gate on your control, all of the downstream results are being reported back in real time, which is very nice. There's a lot of additional pipeline tools and algorithms. So if you haven't heard of pipelines yet in FCS Express, you're going to see them today, where we can, not rely on R, we don't have to rely on cloud computing, and we can do all of these kind of tools like UMAP and TISNI and Flucom directly within FCS Express through this kind of plug and play, native interface in the software. With these new releases, there's also been more speed. You're going to see that today. There's been some specific improvements for SciTech and Biorad data sets working in the software. But again, we only have about 15 minutes today to discuss all this stuff, so I'm going to skip over some of the other things we think are pretty neat. But let me jump in here and talk about the Levi Jennings plots for a moment, because again, I know we have a lot of folks from core facilities who have had this need for analysis. And the way that this kind of works in FCS Express is if we have a bunch of different data files, like we have here, these are ultra rainbow peak data files, we have this standard spreadsheet in FCS Express. And again, this spreadsheet's been here for a very long time, right? You move a gate values in that update. But what a lot of folks needed is to get these kind of days and CVs and means out to Levi Jennings plots. So we've incorporated them directly into the software. And again, what you're going to see is that as we move gates, as we kind of determine where our outliers are, what to include, what not to include, those Levi Jennings plots over there on the right are updating in real time. So again, that's a nice example of this kind of end result, this final result in the software. And you might be wondering, is this kind of stuff hard to put in here? Well, all we do is we come in, we insert an object for a Levi Jennings plot, we choose, whatever parameters we have in that spreadsheet over there. And again, we get that chart. And again, the ones over here have been formatted a little bit more nicely. But the idea is you insert that object just like Microsoft PowerPoint, and then you get this result that's coming out in real time. Now, another kind of example of getting some results in real time comes to these new summary charts that we've included in the software. So we've had a lot of requests for, not just these box and whisker plots that we've had in the software for a while, the ability to work with violin charts, the ability to work with bee-swarm plots. And again, what we do is we just populate one of these spreadsheets. This is all kind of drag and drop from your data into the spreadsheets. The box and whiskers, the violins, the bee swarms, they're all based off of what's in that spreadsheet. But again, the really kind of nice thing here about working in FCS Express is, again, as you update that gate, right, all of that information, it's all interactive over there on the right-hand side, right? So as we're kind of moving this around, the information on the groups and the values are updating right there in those charts. So again, this is going to really facilitate getting to that final result. Instead of, kind of having to take this data and you look at this with your PI and you say, hey, I need to nudge this gate a pixel and then copy and paste and move all that data out somewhere else, you can make that change, realize that moving that gate change doesn't make a huge difference, and you can kind of get off and running with things. Now, sometimes you have some detractors in here. They say, hey, this is just p-value hacking, right? No, right? You have to use this with your controls in hand. You don't just move these gates around until you kind of get things to fit into the statistical significance that you want. But the nice thing here, again, is if we want to take this and we need to move out to PowerPoint because I need, that bee-swarm plot for my presentation in the next 5 minutes, well, here we are. We're in PowerPoint. We have that plot exported. We're ready to kind of rock and roll. Even if we needed the gated data, we have all that information exported out to PowerPoint. And again, I know this looks exactly like FCS Express. As you can see, we've shamelessly by design worked FCS Express around how a PowerPoint works, because everybody knows how to use PowerPoint. The other kind of cool thing I wanted to show off today is the new unmixing and compensation live updating in the software. So you can see here that with FCS Express, we're now automatically calculating a spillover spreading matrix. We're also calculating a cross-staining index matrix. This is things people have asked for a really long time. So these tools are there now. Your standard compensation and spillover matrices are still here and everything, right? So I'm going to kind of move this off to the side while we look at this. But the thing that we've changed here is that as you move a gate, look at that spillover spreading and that CSI matrix over on the other side, right? It's updating in real time as we move this around. So if we need to come in and we need to fine tune where gates are, where controls are, you want to see what's going on. If you set the control to be at the top of the tail of that histogram or at the bottom, we get this live updating information, and you can't kind of see this, this compensation matrix over here is updating in real time as well. But you're going to get that sort of feedback from FCS Express in real time. And that's also going to work for unmixing, which is really, really great tool if you need to come in there and see, what those different kind of changes with your mixing controls are doing. You get that kind of result and that feedback immediately. Now, the last thing I kind of wanted to show real quick, and I'll spend a bulk of my time, a bulk of my 15 minutes, so to say, on discussing some of the higher dimensional data reduction tools. So, as you kind of heard earlier, there's this need for working with processive, type of tools like algorithms versus interactive. And FCS Express have had these tools for a very long time, right? This isn't something that's kind of new to us. And what you're going to see here is I've got a 35 color COVID panel. So this is some data that was kind of put together by SciTech. This is from one of the SciTech instruments. And you can see this is that kind of interactive analysis, right? We have different kind of gated subsets. We have, our bar plots and our kind of little spreadsheets for this data, things like our pie charts in here. This is all the kind of standard kind of classical analysis for this data that you'd be working with, right? And this goes on and on and on because it's a 35 color panel and there's a lot of things that we need to do. However, when it comes into that kind of process of analysis, it doesn't mean you need to kind of start over and recreate the wheel in FCS Express, right? You can see here that we have UMAP visualizations of this data. We now have Flucom in FCS Express, so we can meta cluster the clusters. We can work with our parameter and gate heat maps. So if we want to look at all those Flucom clusters across all the different parameters, we can do that. So all of this is directly built into FCS Express. So you might be wondering, okay, well, how do you do this? Do you have to plug in the R? Do I have to upload this to the cloud? What is it that you're doing? Well, we work through everything in what we call our transformations toolbar here. And we can create what's called pipelines in FCS Express, which are just a series of steps, right? They don't rely on R. We don't rely on sending this information kind of up and down to the cloud. So it makes it very accessible for you, right? And the way that pipelines essentially work is that we create some sort of, say, root step here where we create a pipeline. And then we say, hey, well, for this data set, let's run Flow AI, right? So we put in the Flow AI step and we have all the different kind of downsampling checks for Flow AI. Maybe we want to do a further downsampling on that, right? So we add another downsampling step in there. Now, maybe we want to take that and run a UMAP, right? So we add a UMAP step in there, make sure we get it into the correct position. And then we have everything kind of strung together to perform Flow AI, to do an interval downsampling and do a UMAP, ready to kind of go and rock and roll with the data set. Now, that's what we've done up here, right? We did an interval downsampling. We ran a UMAP on that. We then ran Flowsom. You don't have to know how to put all of these steps together for Flowsom because we do have predefined steps for Flowsom, for FlowCut, and for Flow AI. But I think one of the really important things here is you might be thinking, all right, well, we're just running on this local computer. So how do we, get this, kind of calculation done very quickly? What we've done in FCS Express is because this is all kind of native, you can see here that if I change the sample size, and we'll cheat a little bit, I'll bring the sample size down lower, right? But we're doing those calculations. It's saying down here that it's performing the UMAP. Our UMAP visualization is updating to the new kind of UMAP positions. And what will happen is as we make those changes in FCS Express, we're going to perform those calculations very, very quickly, right? You're going to get some almost live, information, depending on your sample size, right? This isn't going to update, almost in real time for 4 million events. Let's be serious about it. But however, as you come in and you're wondering, all right, well, what do these variables do? How do they change my data, right? This is a very, very useful tool to come in here and make some of those variable changes. And FCS Express, as you can see, can calculate those changes very quickly, very efficiently. And that way, you're getting the kind of feedback that you need to make some decisions about how to set these algorithmic tools, how to use them, and how to work with them in practice. And I didn't really show you, how you actually apply these algorithms. It's all drag and drop. I just drag and drop this pipeline step to a plot, and that's going to run that algorithm on whatever data happens to come in that plot, whether it be merge data or not. So with that, just another minute or two left here, I did want to kind of come in and summarize what we talked about. Essentially what we're going to do in FCS Express, some of the new functionality, the summary charts are there for data QC with the Levi Jennings plots, comparisons between populations with the new summary plots. The live updating, compensation, and mixing is going to be very, very useful for a lot of folks. And again, kind of carrying on from the discussions earlier, where there's this kind of talk of processive versus interactive. I mean, FCS Express has had this, and it's had this for a long time, and it utilizes these new pipeline tools and algorithms coupled with increased speed. So you can work in an intuitive interface, no plugins, no R scripting. You can work between the raw data and the kind of process data, and they're all performed locally at high speed, which means you don't have this need for cloud analysis or any of the challenges that could be associated with that as well. So with that, it really kind of distills down to turning that cytometry data into results, right? And that's what we've always focused on at Novo Software over the last 20 years. You can see for yourself, you can grab a free demo at denovosoftware.com. In that demo, you'll have the ability to work with the pipelines tools, everything that we showed today. It's fully functional for 30 days. So I do highly recommend you go over there and check that out.